Hey guys, it's Vandiazzo, back again with another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. And let's get one started. Today we have Stoicheia, Flagburg, you know, the reincarnation of Maelstrom that has, like, its effect is okay, but it has some major problems with it. And I don't know what the worst part is, the fact that Bushy released all their support cards at once. So when they released Flagburg, they gave it all the support cards, and then afterwards they didn't release any support for Flagburg, which makes me question why they did it all at once. So Flagburg got 8 cards of support, and I guess everyone else also got 8 cards of support, but Flagburg feels like it got the shaft out of all the 3 new ride lines. But it's still interesting because, you know, if you're into that Aquaforce feel, it works out really well, but it has resource problem, to put it lightly. So let's go ahead and get this started. First up, we have our starter, an Officer Cadet Charicles, 6k base, 5k shield, grade 0 with boost, auto when rode upon if you win second, draw a card. Nothing too special about it, standard starter ability. You run it because, no, none of the grade 2 or 1 require it, and neither does Flagburg, but you run it because, you know, it's an Aquaforce based starter, obviously. Unfortunately, the ability is not unique, but hopefully Bushy will give us one eventually. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe with set 5. I hope so. Trigger-wise, we run 1 over trigger and Source Dragon Deity of Blessings Bless Favor. 5k power, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost. Over trigger, you may only have 1 over trigger on the deck. Remember that as a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 1 million for the turn. If revealed during your drive check, activates additional effect, which is draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets a crit. Until end of turn, all of your former units get plus 10. If your damage zone has more cards than your opponent are equal to, choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. This isn't everything, Bagel. It's a draw trigger, it's a crit trigger, it's a front trigger, it's a heal trigger. So all around, this thing is very annoying when you actually get it off, because your opponent, even though it doesn't really hurt the opponent that much, I mean, it might, because you know you're getting a front and a crit out of it, followed by a plus 1 million to wherever the hell you want. You're still getting like a bunch of things going off, forcing them to guard more and getting more defensive out of your hand. So all around, I like Bless Favor. Really interesting. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it doesn't work with this deck as well somewhat as Obari does, because Obari gives 2 units plus 1 million. But at the same time, Obari doesn't do anything in this deck either, because it does best when you have rear guard standing, and your Vanguard's probably going to attack after all your rear guards are rested. So not the best. And then Bless Favor is still good. You know, it's got that everything Bagel, but between those two, Bless Favor has to be the picked one, but I wish they gave us another over trigger, because Bless Favor feels kind of wrong in this deck. Next up, we have 3 fronts and Frenzied Heiress. 4k base, 15k shield, grade 0 with boost. Front trigger, continuous guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, gets plus 5k shield. Okay, I might get some hate for this, because why am I running a front trigger that has a 20k shield at 3? Well, here's why. This front trigger is not that useful, because like I said before, most of the time you're going to attack with your Vanguard last, meaning your front row rear guards will be rested, and Frenzied Heiress will not get the plus 10 off. Or, it will get the plus 10 off to the Vanguard, so it's not really worth running at 4, when you can kind of take advantage of things like draw triggers, where you actually need draw triggers in this deck, and crit triggers to add crit pressure to your Vanguard. So all around, Frenzied Heiress, as much as I would like to run her at 4, it's kind of impractical to do it. Wow, listen to me, I'm finally talking practical. Weird. The 3 Frenzied Heiress, you can run it at 4 if you want, but in my opinion, I think it works better at 3. Next up, we have Lock's Tide of Attachment, just a standard draw trigger. You need it because your deck to get Flagburg's full ability off requires 2 units in particular. So getting access to those units is relatively easy the first time around, but if they start killing your board, then it's really difficult to make plays. So you kind of need draw triggers for that. I don't run 8 draws though, or 7 draws, because you do need crit pressure. Because this crit, Alana, 4k base, 15k shield, grade 0 with boost, critical trigger auto at the end of the battle that it boosted, put this unit to soul, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 2 for the turn. While that 2k is not important, you run it so you can get soul, because like I said, this deck does have a resource problem. And it also would make sense to run crits because Flagburg can restrict guarding, so there's no point not to take full advantage of it, which is why we run crits in this deck. And then finally, our heal is just Elegy Pixy. Nothing too special about it, just a standard heal trigger. And now we move on to our grade 1s. First up, we have our normal order and search for an ideal far away. This thing does really good, except every time I try using it, I use it at the wrong timing. Grade 1 normal order. Choose one of your units and it gets into end of turn, auto van or rear. When your other unit attacks, it gets plus 5k for the turn. So you can give it to a Vanguard, you can give it to a rear guard. This is straight up for free, by the way. I like that, because if you just shove this on Flagburg and you are going to hit your 5 attack maximum this turn, you're getting plus 20 to Van. And then if you do hit that 5 attack maximum, then it's a plus another 10 due to Flagburg skill, so 30 to Van. So your Vanguard's swinging for 33 really easily. 43 really easily. All around, and you can just give this to rear guards too, but I prefer to give it to Van. All around, this order is really good. Makes your attacks a lot bigger, especially because you're going for that multi-attack round, so 2 copies. Next up, we have 4 copies of Prized Trident, AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto rear, when your other unit attacks, if it's the 5th battle of this turn, shove it to soul and countercharge 1. Okay, it goes to soul. Amazing, you fix 1 problem with the soul blast. Countercharges 1. Yes, this deck also has a counter blast problem. Perfect, fixes it. Problem, it requires it to be the 5th battle or more. You had it, and then you lost it. You can run this in Magnolia and make Magnolia really scary, but in Flagburg, the most you are getting is 5 attacks, and once more they require certain units to pull this off. And it requires it to be the 5th battle specifically, which means if you miss the timing of it, if you don't use it on the 5th battle, you ain't using it at all that turn, which sucks so much. But I like this grade 1 too much to hate it, because that counter charge is actually really good. 4 of. Next up, we have High Rate Burst Dragon, AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto, when this unit is placed on rear, if your Vanguard is Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, choose one of your other rear guards and it gets auto rear when this unit attacks if it's the first battle of this turn. Counter blast 1, soul blast 1, stand until end of turn. Okay, I said earlier that you need 2 units to hit the 5 attack thing. This makes it 3, but at the same time, you rarely use this, especially if you do it my way, because for the love of God, you have to waste a counter blast and a soul blast to restand it, when the other 2 pieces that actually restand are just a counter blast and a soul blast, 1 each, not both of them at the same time, just respectively 1. So I understand why they made this, but it's like, why? Like, it could have just been, stand it and then you draw a card. I mean, that would have been a lot better, just to kind of refill your hand, not just counter blast 1, soul blast 1, which is what the other 2 important factors of this deck do. But sure, I like its art though. It's just skill is not that useful in my opinion. 4 of, because you do need the restander at some point. 4 of Planar Prevent Dragon RPG, 6k base, grade 1 boost, 0 shield, continuous sentinel. You have up to 4 cards with continuous sentinel in your deck. Auto, when it's put on guard circle, choose one of these, and it cannot be hit till the battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. It has that really amazing ability where if this and only 1 other card's in your hand when you would play it to defend yourself, you don't have to discard for it. But all around, I'm kind of tempted to remove the PG. If we had more restandards, I would be tempted to remove the PG. I mean, if we had more restanders, I'm getting rid of... I accidentally went a bit too far. If we have more restanders, I'm getting rid of this immediately. But I'm somewhat tempted to get rid of the PG just to get, more resource gainers, especially drawers, because that's kind of what the deck has a problem with at the end of the game. So, Planar Prevent, as much as I like, kind of feels like it's taking up space. And I did run Nirvana without PGs for a long time. So I'm feeling like if I were to do this, I would have relative reason to. I'm not saying I will, but I am somewhat tempted to do it. Could someone test that out for me and see how it goes? Because I'm actually curious. So 4 PG though, because you actually want the PG, but I'm somewhat tempted to remove it. And then our last grade 1 and our main grade 1, 2 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the ride deck of Inroad Shooter, AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto, when it's rolled upon by Ascendance Assault, the grade 2, call it to rear. So straight up, just call a card when you just call the card that you placed on Van. So really nice. And continues rear, if your Vanguard is Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, or Ascendance Assault, it gets intercept and +2. Okay, so I never use that because I use a 10k booster out of that because that's really nice. But that intercept ability, as much as I like it because it allows you to get for that 5k shield intercept, Flagburg does not need it, because on the first 2 grade 3 turns, either your opponent's dead, or after that you're dead because the game has slowed down too much to where you've used up too many hand cards, too many resources to make plays with, and then that's normally when the opponent takes it back. That is genuinely how Flagburg has been played with me. I'm not so sure if that's everyone else, or at least from how I've observed it with both my playstyle and seeing other people play it. Flagburg dies after 2nd grade 3 turn, or slowly dies, and then it just kind of can't do anything as it just seeps slowly into depression. So, Inroad Shooter, as much as I like that intercept skill never comes in helpful when it needs to, and it's a 10k booster, but hey, the 10k booster actually does help because it forces out at least an extra 5k guard. So 3 copies of Inroad Shooter because he's really nice. Especially a grade 2 rush. When you go first with this deck, it's actually really scary. I have been on the receiving end of this, and it is annoyingly hard to deal with, especially when you're playing my version of Bastion, which means you run all grade 3s, minus the PGs and triggers. So take that as you will. On to grade 2s, we run 4 copies of Creed Assault, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Continuous rear. If your rear guard was not stand by an effect this turn, it cannot attack, and continuous rear during the battle of the attack to Vanguard, it gets plus 10. Okay, there is one major problem with this. As much as I love this card, you cannot swing with it if something does not stand. Bushy the fuck. Why did you make this a card? Because at least back in V, this would be acceptable because you would have an Excel gift. You could just call it to the Excel gift or call it to the other 2 rearguard circles, and you can still easily stand your rear guards because of how the game works. But unfortunately, one of the restanders we have requires you to swing into another rearguard, and if they don't have another rearguard, then this is useless because then you don't restand. And then the other one requires another rearguard to attack, which means to use this, you actually have to use it with higher rate, and then it will become useful. But even then, you're wasting more resources than it's worth. I love Creed Assault, but I would never be able to pull him off in Stoicheia because of how he works. If only Flagburg stood your rear guards. That's what I wanted Flagburg to do, because I was like, hey, if it stands rear guards, that would make the deck a lot more valuable and just kind of be a more Aquaforce feeling type of deck. But no, instead we have a Maelstrom knockoff motherfucker who, I admit, he has an okay skill, but the restand would have been better, especially when things like this are running around where you can't use them because they require other things to stand. Bushy, why did you make Creed Assault a thing? There was no inherent reason to do it, or there was no inherent reason to put the stand restriction on it. They could have just made it when it swings get +5. That would have been fine as long as they got rid of the stand restriction, but no, they had to make it this. 4 of. One day I will get to use him, and one day he will kill someone. When that day is, I have no idea, but I have hope that it will happen soon, when I want it to. Even though I know it's never going to happen. So 4 of. He does have a cool art, though. And now to our 2 cards that, actually stand and allow this deck to be good. 4 copies of Aggress Blue Dragon. Yes, I know, I'm somewhat upset with this deck, because there are a lot of things that could have been done with them, and they didn't get them. In all honesty, I hate hybrid decks, but I would have been willing to run this in a Magnolia hybrid because Magnolia can at least hit 6 attacks. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto rear once per turn at the end of the battle that your unit attacked a rear guard. This unit attacked a rear guard. If your vanguard is Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, Soul Blast 1 and stand it. Okay, I like this. He has a battleship on his back. He has a dagger, and he's just riding the ocean. In all honesty, he's one of my favorite cards in terms of art. It's an easy Soul Blast. Somehow Soul Blast ends up being the cost I pay most in the deck, but that's also because of how the grade 1 and 2 work, where you can call them from Soul, so you kind of have less Soul Blast to work with. But it has the stand ability if it swings into rear, so you're killing their interceptor. Here's the problem with this, though. This does not go off if they don't have a rear guard to swing into. Yes, I know people who will willingly sack their rear guards in the front row, or not call anything to the front row, especially if they're powerhouse decks, just to not get touched by this. And this also does, well actually no, it just has to attack a rear guard, it doesn't have to hit it, so fair enough, but still. I like this ability, but it's like, really bad. It could have just, it's the most balanced out of this deck, I guess, so it's better than Creed Assault, that's all I'm going to say about this. So 4 of. 4 of, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck of our last grade 2 and our main grade 2 in terms of ride line. Ascendance Assault, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, this ability may cost be paid by reveal a Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, or an Inroad Shooter from your hand. When this unit is rode upon, Soul Blast 1 other card and call it to rear. So either you Soul Blast 1 to call this, which means if you're using Inroad Shooter with it, you've lost your entire soul by now, which is not good, especially if you're planning on using this to restand. Or you could just reveal a copy of it or Inroad Shooter. A copy of Flagburg or Inroad Shooter so that you don't have to Soul Blast. You're still losing a soul because it's calling out from soul, but it's still good. Like, you're getting benefit out of it, which I'm fine with, but in a deck that's kind of resource heavy, having something that calls out from soul is not ideal. And then the auto rearguard ability, once per turn when your other rearguard attacks a vanguard, if your vanguard is Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, counterblast 1, stand it. Okay, so you swing, counterblast 1, stand it. Really easy. You combine it with this and you get 5 attacks really quickly, because you can just go swing with this. Hopefully they don't, if they have 2 interceptors, just swing into one of them with this so make it hard on them, and then swing into the other one with Aggress Blue, skill of Aggress Blue, Soul Blast, restand it, skill of this thing, counterblast 1, restand it, boom, you get your 5 attacks because Flagburg's still standing and you have these 2 ready. Thing is about this, though, and the part about this I hate the most, it cannot be used if your other unit, the rear guard does not swing. So you can't even use it if your Vanguard Flagburg swings, because it requires the rear guard to swing. Which means you cannot use this with Creed Assault unless you call high rate. Bushy, why did you make this a card? This solely, like, as good as it is, does nothing in the deck unless you have a way to get us more fucking circles, or unless you give us a way to attack from back row without using Magnolia. Until then, what the hell? Because if I remember correctly, Danny Mara requires Magnolia. If it doesn't, then I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Danny Mara requires it. So, I like this card, but once more, really sucks because it requires the rear guard to stand and not attack, and not the Vanguard. It's still nice. It's better than Creed Assault. That's all I can say about it. 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck. In our main grade 3, who I have very certain opinions of: Flagship Dragon, Flagburg Dragon, 13k base, grade 3, twin pair, Persona Ride, Auto Van. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, counterblast 1 and perform all the following effects below based on the number of times you attack this turn. 3 or more, draw a card. Okay, that's really easy. Like, there is no way in hell you're not getting a draw one, because normally you should have Inroad Shooter on your field by now, unless you're playing against a deck that murders rear guards like Eugene. Then in that case, okay, maybe you won't use the skill, but still, that should be easy to pull off. And it counts its own battle too, so that's 2. You just need 1 more rear guard, and boom, you got a draw out of it. 4 or more, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, kill them. So, really helpful. You just kill 2 rear guards, and you get to pick them. And 5 or more, until the end of battle, gets +10, and when your opponent will call cards from their hand to guard circle, they must call 3 or more. That's why this is here. You force out more cards from your opponent's hand. Except, in my opinion, this is the least impactful, because yeah, if you're rushing them and you see triggers, or like, if they don't see defensives and you don't see triggers, then yeah, it's very annoying to deal with still on their side, as long as they don't see a defensive. Thing is though, once more, like previous Excel decks from V, this dies to defensives. Unless it's the Vanguard, then yeah, it doesn't die to defensives. But still, I hate this. That 10k and the drop 3 is only helpful if they decide to guard this. In all honesty, typically when I play against Flagburg, I set it up to where I can take the Vanguard, and then I don't have to discard 3, because honestly, I just like take the, depending on what damage I'll take the first 1 or first 2, try to pull a damage trigger, I'll guard the other 2, so I've only wasted 2 cards from my hand, most likely, and then Flagburg swings, boom, I wasted 1 less card guarding. So it's the small things that matter, but it's still important. All honesty, this should have been just a card that says on swing, stand 2 rear guards. That honestly would have been a lot better, because it allows you to use Creed Assault. But, it's not. And hopefully they give us like an upgraded card of this. Like, in set 4, we're getting evolutions, but I highly doubt they're going to give evolutionary grade 3s to the guys that just got released. If they do, I'll be really satisfied, and I want Bushy to make this a standard. But it's not going to happen. I know it's not. Either way, it's a fun deck playing, I guess, in the sense that, you know, you can attack 5 times. Then again, if you want multi-attack, go to Magnolia, because Magnolia can actually do it more and, like, more consistently, I guess. Like, they have more power out of it, slightly more power. They have more attack. Actually, on average, first grade 3 turn, they will have less attacks, but then afterwards, they will have more attacks, especially if you're Persona Ride, and they'll be at bigger numbers compared to this deck. So, if you want a multi-attack deck, go to Magnolia. If you want to play Aqua Force, stay here. If you want to run a card that is good, don't run Creed Assault. That is my opinion on this. Like, it's really good. It has a lot of potential to be a good deck, and in terms of aesthetics and what it does, it is one of my favorite decks. But the whole problem is how it's executed. That's where I hated it. Like, it's so good. They did a lot of good things building it up and making it strong, but then how it gets executed, like, it shoots it in the kneecap and paralyzes it for the rest of its life. That's how it feels. Especially because after second grade 3 turn, this deck dies. A lot of other decks I know do not die at second grade 3 turn. This one, from everything I've seen, different builds and my build personally, this deck dies at second grade 3 turn, and after that, you're not necessarily fully dead, but you're constantly losing your resources and your aggressive advantage to the point where your opponent can just take advantage of it and win the game with just 3 attacks really easily. So, that's the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully in set 4 we get a lot more support for this, because I really want to see where it goes. Because set 3, it got really bad. It was really bad. But hopefully in set 4 we get a good amount of support. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.